Offers dine-in, catering, delivery, and takeout at Bay Meadows, Hendricks, and Mandarin locations. Menu items include fresh sandwiches, salads, and soups. Open Monday through Saturday. Online ordering and menu at clarastidbits.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, how local Head Start programs are dealing with uncertainty about federal funding. We talked to the local head of Episcopal Children Services about the future of early childhood education. Then, turning pollution fines into cleaner river water. We check out what's happening in the Trout River during the upcoming Oysterfest. And after a period of transition, disruption, and multiple production delays, we catch up with the new leadership at All Beaches Experimental Theater about what's next for the 33-year-old organization. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also reach out on social media. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump's latest round of tariffs went into effect overnight. That comes on top of the minimum 10% tariffs that he imposed on nearly all countries last weekend. Now, China has announced an additional 50% retaliatory tariff on all U.S. goods, bringing its total tariffs on U.S. items to 84%. As NPR's Emily Fang reports, the trade war between the world's two largest economies is escalating.
China has showed no signs of backing down after President Trump's most recent round of tariffs on Chinese goods, which now total north of 100%. China's new levies of 50% on U.S. imports go into effect starting Thursday. China's government has also filed 2 complaints with the World Trade Organization, saying the U.S. levies break international law. Earlier, Beijing signaled it was trying to negotiate with the Trump administration, but it switched this week, calling Trump's latest tariffs a, quote, mistake on top of a mistake, exposing what it says is a, quote, blackmailing nature. Emily Fang, NPR News.
Mary Lovely is a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. She says during a trade war in 2018, U.S. businesses saw some effects, but she says this time is different for Americans because the tariff rates are very high and could go much higher.
Well, I think you'll see it most clearly in consumer goods. These were largely spared, not entirely spared in the first trade war, but we're going to see it quickly in electronics, in home goods, in clothing and apparel, lots of things that people buy very often. Companies, of course, will see it in all kinds of inputs and commodities that they buy from abroad.
She spoke to NPR's Morning Edition. The Republican-led House of Representatives has rejected a plan to allow members of Congress to cast proxy votes after they become new parents. Now, the House is taking a different approach. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports a new GOP deal scuttled the effort that paralyzed the House floor last week.
Florida Republican Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna teamed up with House Speaker Mike Johnson to revive an obscure 19th century House rule to let absent members pair up to record their intent to vote.
It's not what we initially had wanted, but it's a step forward in the right direction.
Luna had moved on from a bipartisan plan with Colorado Democrat Brittany Pedersen, who argued the House needs proxy voting.
And make it more accessible to young families and more reflective of the American people.
Although President Trump expressed support for the bipartisan effort, Johnson argued it was unconstitutional. Luna and Pedersen publicly disagreed, and then came word Luna cut a deal to rely on vote pairing instead. Claudia Grisales, NPR News.
This is NPR.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning, I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan says she will continue working to develop an affordable housing trust fund for the thousands who need help buying a home. Speaking at an iCare meeting this week, the mayor says her office has already invested money into affordable housing, but her proposed $10 million affordable housing plan was killed by the city council last year. So she promised to find other ways to help residents who don't earn enough to pay for food, utilities, and a house payment. That includes working with iCare.
I think the idea of a housing trust fund is a good one. The challenge is that we are structured very differently than a lot of the other cities that do those. So we'll have to look at how we can do it, but absolutely want to work with a group that passionate who wants to solve a problem. And we will definitely work with them to create that in whatever way that we can.
An audience of about 500 plus people also heard from Sheriff T.K. Waters about the drop in the murder rate over the past year and how his department's group violence intervention strategy has helped. iCare is a coalition of local faith leaders that pushes elected officials to find solutions to problems facing the community. Well, it's just going to be a perfect day overall here in Northeast Florida. We'll stay mostly dry and mostly sunny this afternoon with highs in the mid-70s. It'll be in the lower 70s near the beaches thanks to the winds that are coming in off the Atlantic. We do have a chance for some isolated showers south of St. Augustine later on this afternoon. Lows overnight will drop down into the lower 60s with partly cloudy skies.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, federal funding cuts are forcing social service agencies to consider contingency plans. We talked to the head of one of the largest early education agencies in the state about how they're preparing while continuing their work. Later in the program, luring oysters back to the Trout River. We talked to organizers behind the Riverview Park project and the upcoming Oysterfest. But first, it's been just over a year since Dr. Natalya Roby took over as president and CEO of Episcopal Children's Services, and a lot has changed in that time. Here to talk about it, Dr. Roby, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So you started a year ago, January. How different are the challenges today than when you first took the job?
They're very different. It's been amazing to enter an organization where there's an alignment of purpose among all the people that work there. So I feel really privileged to lead this agency and the dedication. We have staff that have worked there for 50 years, 50.
Wow.
Yeah, and our next year will be our 60th anniversary. So a lot has changed, but then a lot hasn't at the same time. So it's leveraging really the wonderful work that's been done for the last 59 years and using it as a launching pad to take us to the next phase of our existence.
Yeah, and so Episcopal Children Services obviously has deep roots in the community, has been around a long time. You were kind of there through a rebranding of sorts.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about kind of what the goal was with adding to the name and sort of helping to redefine what it stands for.
Sure, that's a great question. We are Episcopal Children Services, and that is still our legal name, and it will always be a part of who we are, a part of our foundation. We started in an Episcopal church 59 years ago, one church that served just a few children, and now we're in 14 counties throughout the state of Florida and serving 28,000, almost 30,000 children and families. So it was really important when we came in to do a scan of the people that we're serving and also those that we weren't. And if they needed our help, what were some of the barriers to that? And although we were founded by the Episcopal Church, they're not involved in the organization from a governance level. although they're very supportive externally. So we're grateful for that. But we wanted to remove barriers. So if you're not Episcopalian or from any different type of religious organization, we wanted everyone to know that we're a place where we want to serve your kids. If they're in need, we're here to serve them. So ECS for Kids, that became our branded name. That was something that was already being said internally. So we just flipped it externally to ensure that the people who need us the most knew that we were here for them.
And so this agency, as you say, covers a huge swath of counties in the Northeast, North Florida area.
Yeah.
And that's where you've been based for the last several years. I think you're originally from New York, perhaps?
Yeah, I was born in New York, moved to Orlando and then Gainesville for college.
Yeah.
So go Gators.
Yeah, it's been a good week, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it has.
So you were attending University of Florida and very much planning at that time, I guess, to go into law. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about kind of why you wanted to go into law in the first place, and then what gave you that left turn?
I love this conversation because it makes my parents used to cringe about it, but now they smile. Since I was little, I was a very curious person, and I questioned everything. And I think when sometimes people kind of put a label on you, like, oh, she talks a lot, she asks a lot of questions, she's going to be a lawyer. So it carried with me throughout my life. So when I entered college, I just knew I was just going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. But I knew I wanted to help families. So I thought about getting into family law. My parents are immigrants from another country, from Guyana, a very poor country. And I really wanted to do something with my life that would give purpose. And while I was applying for law school, I had a volunteer experience with Boys and Girls Clubs in Gainesville, and it absolutely changed my life. There was a little girl who, while I was volunteering, I was a student at UF at the time, again, applying to law school at the same time, and this girl looked at me and said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm volunteering. This was in a public housing community 1 mile away from the University of Florida. And she couldn't believe that I was a student there. And I asked her why, and she said, brown people don't go to college. And it stopped me in my tracks. And from that moment, it changed my entire trajectory. If you talk to her now, she'll say that I changed her life, but she actually changed mine. I threw away my law school applications. I told my parents that I found my purpose.
What was it about that comment to you? I mean, this was a young girl.
She was 6 years old.
6. And what was it about that comment that was so changing for you or so impactful?
It was profound because I learned in that moment that showing up can change a life. And I decided that that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And if I can make a career out of feeling that I'm doing something purposeful in this world, that's what I was going to do.
And so when she said that to you, brown people don't go to college, what did you say to her?
I looked at her, and she was a funny girl. She asked me for my student ID because she needed proof. She's like, I need a receipt, ma'am. Like, I need to know that you really are in college. I showed her my ID, and she looked like she saw a ghost. And it's one of those moments where you'll never forget. She said her grandma lived there, her mom lived there. So this was a continuous cycle of poverty. And this young girl who was 6 years old planned on living here too, which was in this this government housing community. And I wanted her to see a way out, even if it was just this one girl. And I realized there was a lot of girls and boys that felt that way. And if I could show up and give them hope for a brighter future, that's what I was going to do.
So talk a little bit about what it means to see somebody do something that you think is outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, why was it meaningful to her, do you think? It sounds like you're still in touch with her.
I am. She actually wrote my recommendation letter for this job. Wow. She is an adult now. That was, again, the beginning of my career. She launched it because, again, that statement, I could not stop thinking about it. And I went to my boss at the time, who was the CEO in Gainesville, and I said, listen, I want to do everything I can to learn about how to serve this community or serve communities that are most in need. And I want to leverage my skills to do that. And I believe that my lived experiences can be leveraged in this type of role, or any role that can help kids in need. I come from a background again of my mother didn't go to college, and she we my parents were together in New York, and then when we moved to Florida, they separated, and I went from a very middle class life. I went to private school in New York. I also had access to early learning, which I still give credit to today. But when we moved to Florida, we lived in immense poverty, and so I had an opportunity to experience both sides of what that life is like. Um, so being able to meet our kids where they are, right, and see things through their eyes because I've had a similar lived experience, has been I think one of the secret sauces of my leadership.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Dr. Natalya Roby. She's the CEO and president of Episcopal Children Services. If you have questions about early literacy and the work of fighting poverty, you can join our conversation by calling 904-549-2937, or you can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also reach out on social media. We're on X and Facebook and Instagram at FCC On Air. Um, so if you can, let's just talk a little bit about the work of fighting poverty and the cycles of poverty. How is it that Episcopal Children's Services addresses that? I mean, what are the kind of transoms that you work through to get to issues of poverty?
I'll start with my full circle moment and kind of and pivot to that because I think it's important to align my why with what we're doing. Again, my mother didn't go to college, and the first job she ever got, again, we were living in poverty when we moved to Orlando, Florida, and the first job she ever got was as a Head Start teacher. And I always get a little emotional about this part because she was not the most secure person about, stepping into a professional role. But I remember the training and the passion that she felt, and it pulled us out of poverty. It was the way that it ended our generational cycle of poverty. And now that I have the privilege of leading an agency that helps families, lifts families out of poverty, again, it's a full circle moment in my life because I saw it firsthand personally in my life. And now I'm able to see it firsthand through thousands and thousands of other lives. So, and the way that we do that is we provide the highest quality early learning services possible. And I also try not to box us into we are just an early learning agency. We are an agency fighting to end generational poverty. And the way that we do that, we use early learning as a tool. We ensure that children are prepared for kindergarten. I know we're looking at third grade literacy rates, but it starts way before that. And children and families need mental health support. We have mental health services that we provide to our families. We do father engagement services. We ensure that 20% of our families that come to ECS, they're employed by us. So we also really position ourselves as an economic driver in our community. We have over 750 staff, and again, a little over 20% of those are people who are actually being served by our agency. And then when we look at the trickle effect of those people who are able to now enter back into the workforce because they have quality childcare, there's a ripple effect of ending generational cycles.
We have a call from Curtis on the north side. Good morning, Curtis. Go ahead.
Good morning, my sisters. Dr. Roby, what a beautiful story, my sister. Lord, that is life-changing. Also, too, Ann, kudos to you, my sister. First Coast Connect is a wealth of knowledge. I try to tell everyone they should tune in to First Coast Connect. There is always something you can learn, something you can experience through someone else. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Very nice call. So you were saying, education, the literacy metric is often measured starting in the third grade. We look at, our kids able to read on grade level at that point, but you're saying that interventions really need to start much earlier. Can you talk about why that matters and when is an appropriate time for those efforts to begin?
Thank you. Right away, immediately, because literacy again it's it is a predictor whether we're building more jails or jobs in the future. But if we can get children into an early learning center and their parents who also need support, then we're doing a 2-generational impact. And that's really one of the strategies that we have. The earlier we can get kids in the building, the better, right? Even if they're an infant, right? That extra love and support, nutrition, health, and then also offering teen mothers or mothers who are not sure what their next step is going to be, helping them find jobs, helping them learn about nutrition and how to care for their baby. All of those things are just so important. So to your point, when a child enters kindergarten and they feel unprepared, they are more likely to participate in risky behaviors instead of feeling confident in the work that they're doing. And I worked at Boys and Girls Club where we were collect, you could see we collect report cards. You can see right away for the kids who are in kindergarten who had access to early learning versus those that didn't. And those that didn't, they had a really hard time. Not that they weren't brilliant and smart, but they felt unprepared. And being unprepared, it really starts right there. The pipeline to them either moving on and being successful academically and socially versus taking other routes.
And I think some people would be surprised to know that things that are, at that early level, if you're starting a step behind in kindergarten, can continue to impact you. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
think, well, you can kind of catch up, right? You're learning your ABCs, you're learning to tie your shoes, everybody kind of moving at that pace.
Yeah.
And but that can have impacts years down the road.
Absolutely. Self-confidence, right? Right away. You're a human nature, right? Even for a child, they're going to go where they feel that they most fit in, where they're most welcomed. And if they don't know their colors and they have never opened a book for the first time in kindergarten, or they're struggling to find a nutritious meal, right? Those are barriers to them being able to really fully engage in school and literacy. And so again, giving them that really early start, like at the earliest stages in life, where they are reading with their parents. Again, we're giving our parents books and tools so that they can work with them at home. Our family advocates are working with them to ensure that they have the tools to support their children so that when they're going into kindergarten, this is a part of their life now. This is not something new when they start kindergarten.
We're talking to Dr. Natalya Roby of Episcopal Children Services. We've got a call from Stanley on the north side. Good morning, Stanley. Go ahead.
Good morning to everybody. First of all, the young lady, I'm going to say young lady, is on point. But it need to start as soon as the mother find out that she's pregnant. And she need to be going into support services to talk about parenting, whether she's single parenting or dual family. But my main concern here when it comes to the African-American community, they are not addressing this issue here because all I hear is that they are talking about they pay, how much they get paid. And child care today is so expensive, it's a crying shame. Thank you.
Thanks, Stanley. What is the role of early childhood education in terms of being that additional role of kind of providing childcare? This state has been supportive of VPK, the voluntary pre-K. Head Start is different than that somewhat. Can you kind of talk about, first of all, just what is available and how they serve a role both in helping kids learn, but also helping parents who might be working?
Yeah. So ECS for kids, we have VPK services. We have Head Start, early Head Start. We also offer teacher coaching throughout to over 100 early learning centers in different communities in Northeast Florida. It's extremely important that we are making sure our services are holistic, so that and to our caller's point, addressing the need, right? So childcare is one of the biggest barriers for lower class, middle class. I mean, it is one of the biggest barriers, no matter what income bracket you're in, honestly. But especially to those who are underserved. We strategically placed our early learning centers in communities where kids and their families can walk to we call them neighborhood centers. We want to make sure they're highly accessible so that our parents don't have any barriers. So when you look at Head Start is very specific to, there's a curriculum, mandated by the federal government, but we also are not limited to that. We're always able to add. So we add innovative services to those to what we're already doing. One of the things I've been really excited about, and I saw this in my interview process, was the father engagement initiatives. There were dads volunteering and reading with their kids in the classroom. I mean, that family engagement piece has been extremely critical. And I've worked with, this is the third nonprofit I've worked with. So my entire career has been in this field. But again, it's full circle because although I love every agency I've worked with, working with kids at the earliest stages in life and their parents, I really wanted to do something that would end generational cycles of poverty because all of those other services are absolutely needed. But I want us to get our kids and families to a place where they are better prepared and we're actually ending these cycles and we're kind of not doing the same thing over and over. It's time. I like to say in the nonprofit business that it's our business to put ourselves out of business.
Who is eligible, though, for those services when it comes to the VPK, the early Head Start, the Head Start programs that are available?
It's income-based, but we do have, majority of all of them, it's a zero fee for Head Start services, depending if they fit into the income brackets. And that's on an individual basis, depending on your family size and structure. But we do look at, again, the whole family. And there is a small gap because there are people who are right on the cusp, right? When you feel like two parents who are working just to make ends meet, and they might be right over. So we're able to bring in about 10% of families who are a little bit over our income bracket so that we can serve them as well. So again, we're being really thoughtful about the need and the different circumstances each family has.
Has it made any difference for your organization or for your efforts to have a mayor that has really prioritized early literacy efforts?
Yeah, it's really been wonderful to see Mayor Deegan put this at the forefront. Again, I'm standing on this platform of bring your kids in early because kindergarten is too late. So it's been really wonderful to have her voice at the forefront of this. And we're right there. We're right there with her, advocating to make sure that we get these kids as early as possible. Kids are 29% more likely to graduate from high school than their peers if they have engaged in early learning services. And the statistics show they're less than likely to engage in the juvenile justice system. So again, when we're talking about early learning and holistic services, we're not talking about literacy is important, but there are other barriers to get these kids to read. Again, through nutrition, through support services, mental health services, to the caller's point, getting mothers who are pregnant in, and we do that too. We have home services where we go in and support our pregnant mothers and get them prepared. And they're first on the list to get their kids into our early Head Start center.
You were talking about the statistics of success, and we know that the reverse is also true. I mean, there have been some studies that show that 75% of students who can't read by the end of the fourth grade will end up either needing public assistance or in jail.
Yes.
Those are pretty shocking statistics. So, people often talk about the school to prison pipeline, but I'm not sure people understand necessarily kind of what that means. Can you just be a little more specific about the connection between early learning, literacy, and outcomes?
Sure. I'll go back to what I was sharing about working in a space with kindergartners. The children who felt unprepared, it didn't feel like they had a sense of belonging in an academic or educational space, were far more likely to participate in risky behaviors in their community because they want to feel like they belong. It is our job to ensure that they're prepared. And if they are prepared, they're less likely to engage in those behaviors. They're more likely to feel confident when they open that book. If they're opening a book for the first time, it's very difficult. Not that they're not capable, but they're starting from behind. So making sure that we're engaging children and their parents again, because some of our parents, again, are young, or, when I say younger, I mean they're children themselves.
Yeah.
Or haven't had access and they're wanting to break these cycles as well. They're really wanting better for their children. So engaging them again in the earliest stages of life is critical.
Let's talk a little bit about your funding situation and the funding matrix for Episcopal Children Services. It's largely dependent on federal funding. It's a very uncertain time for federal funding, particularly when it comes to social service agencies and their future under the current presidential administration. What are you doing? What what are your concerns and what are you doing to prepare for them?
I was in Washington, D.C. in January, actually the day of the federal funding pause. And although that day was, there was a lot of emotions that day for not just people in Head Start, but for everyone that was impacted. The uncertainty of it all, right? I had meetings with at least at a minimum 5 congressional leaders, and what I have learned is that on both sides of the aisle, people are very interested in ensuring that children are served. I saw a video from RFK, our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, and he visited a Head Start in Virginia about a month ago. And it really was affirming about the work that Head Start has been doing. Head Start has been around for 60 years as well. And it's on Instagram if anybody wants to take a look. And he was really impressed by, especially the nutritional component, that this is a place where kids are learning about nutrition and that's trickling into their families. We are monitoring everything very closely. And if I had a crystal ball, I wish I could tell you what could happen. But I do feel confident that because of what history has shown us, the Head Start has been supported on both sides of the aisle for about 60 years now. And we're feeling confident moving into this budget.
Got a comment on X from Fire Pit Mike saying, investing in preschool education is one of the highest yielding investments we can make. We get an estimated 700% return and people's lives are much improved. Not investing is a huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Roby, in addition to the federal funding, you all are also locally responsible for fundraising to kind of make up what the federal government does not provide. But it's a tough time for nonprofits that finance agencies like yours. For anybody that is perhaps financing you that has investments that are in a troubled state right now.
Yeah.
Who knows for how long? So how is that impacting you in terms of the local? And when I say local, I mean kind of the regional supporters that you have.
So just for context, Head Start is about 40% of our budget, not our entire budget, but it's a big chunk. That's why our fundraisers are so important, and we are really looking to engage our local legislators, and we have been doing that. We've really strategized around ensuring that they are touring centers and seeing the work firsthand, just like RFK has, right? Doing that at the local level. Also really engaging donors and supporters in the community. To your caller's point about investing in early Head Start is an investment in a stronger and brighter community. It is the long game, though. It is important that we are engaging philanthropically at the local level, and to be perfectly transparent, we haven't leveraged our message enough about this, and that's part of when you say what has changed. That's what's changing in this next year. Is that I want to make sure that people understand that we need their support. Diversifying our funding is critical, and it is investment in their community. And for every dollar invested, there's a $7.10 return on investment. So it's really right here in this community. So it's really important that we're hoping that people attend our fundraisers. We have a big one coming up, Wine, Women, and Shoes. We call it our Party with a Purpose.
Tell us about that. That one's coming up tomorrow, right?
Yes, it's tomorrow. I'm really excited about it. We have a family that's going to tell their story because, again, it's a party with a purpose, but the most important thing is the purpose. And Enrica is her name, and she has children who go to our Head Start facilities, and she's also participating in our programming. And she shared that because her children were able to get access to early learning care, And what she says is the hardest time of her life, she was able to start her own business. So we talk about Head Start and early learning as an economic driver. She started her own business. It's a balloon decorating business. She's also donating that to our fundraiser.
Oh, wow.
So when we talk about full circle moments and giving back, she's giving back because of the work that we've done to help transform her and her family's life. And her husband has spoken at different events for us, and they're going to be speaking at Wine Women in Shoes. And the story is absolutely compelling, and I really encourage anyone who's looking for a good time and their heart touched at the same time to come on out and support us. We have lots of tickets available still, auction items, really fun time, but again, heartfelt.
So that is, as we said, it's tomorrow. It's 6 o'clock at Timuquana Country Club. Where can people get information or tickets if they are interested in being a supporter?
They can find it on our website at ecsforkids.org/WWS. And if you're unable to make it to our event, that is okay. We would love you to come. It's going to be great. It's better to hear from them firsthand, but you can also go to our website, ecsforkids.org/donate, if you want to make a donation and an investment in our community.
And that's for the numeral, right? ECS number 4 kids.
ECS number 4, yes.
All right. Well, it is so nice to meet you, Dr. Roby. Thanks so much for coming in. We appreciate it. Good luck with the event tomorrow.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being here.
Up next, Riven Restoration Project is turning pollution into progress along the Trout River in Jacksonville. Joining me to discuss the effort are John Henry November of the Public Trust. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
And Marcia Ray Wellington of the Riverview Collective. Good morning, Marcia Ray.
Good morning.
If you will, start us off, Marcia Ray. First of all, what is the Riverview Collective and what is its role in this project that we're talking about, Oysterfest?
Yes, so Riverview Collective Community Organization, we are a newly formed organization on the north side of Jacksonville. We represent the Riverview neighborhood, and a part of the Riverview neighborhood, we actually focus on District 8, which is the Trout River side. So we are taking a holistic approach to our work in the community, and this direction that we're headed first, our priority is the water, because our many of our homes are along the Trout River, and what we're seeing is a lot of flooding, a lot of erosion that's happening. We're losing property because of the storms, and so this work is important to us because it will hopefully help us to save the efforts, just really protect us from erosion, but then also help to improve the water quality in the area. And improving the water quality, not only we're talking about healthy, for the community, but also health for the other species that are in the water also.
And so how big of a defining kind of natural characteristic is the Trout River in that neighborhood?
Oh, wow. So that's kind of hard to, I don't have that information specifically, but along that Riverview, from one end of the community to the other, we are the Trout River flows. So, the backyards of the Riverview on District 8, those backyards back up to the Trout River.
Yeah.
So we have some beautiful waterfront homes back there. It's a real gem that many don't know about because you really have to go into the community to really see and get to the water. And that's the same thing with the park. You've got to go down into the park to really see the river. But it's amazing. It's beautiful. And that's why we've got to really come together to make sure that we preserve the integrity of the neighborhood and of the water as well.
And John Henry, so what exactly is being done here at this park?
Well, on Saturday, we're going to have Oysterfest, which is a great celebration of this project, but we are doing a restoration project of the oysters, and it allows for shoreline stabilization and cleaning water quality. And yes, this is a pilot project. It's an establishment of a great project that can be implemented in other communities across and tributaries across Northeast Florida. But this is an excellent outreach and education project as well, where Marcia Ray and her team of 2 local students, both college-age students, are going to go into the local schools and educate and provide outreach so the next generation can also complete the stewardship of our natural resources.
And so specifically, though, the reef placement that is going to be put out there, can you describe a little bit what these are physically that we're talking about and how they work to ultimately attract oysters and kind of clean the river? Can you just sort of describe what it looks like and then how the process works?
Yeah, so these are called oyster modules. So they actually are made out of concrete and oysters, and then live oysters come and live on top of these oysters. So it creates sort of an oyster community there in Riverview. And so it's a exciting opportunity for right there at a really popular park in that community for people to be able to be educated on this topic so they can see what are indeed the benefits of these oysters for the Riverview community.
And so people who are watching our live stream can see some pictures of these modules as you describe them, but they're basically kind of clusters, balls of a sort that are like concrete and oyster shell. And so how do they help stabilize the shoreline, and how do they attract oysters?
Well, so I can speak to that.
All right.
And so another piece that we're doing to kind of get in the work get ahead of installing those modules, we're actually installing vertical oyster gardens, right? And so the purpose of those gardens are to attract those oyster spats because that's how oysters are developed.
What is a vertical oyster garden?
A vertical oyster garden is actually just a thin wire, and you have recycled oyster shells that are strung along that, and we attach those to piers or docks in the neighborhood. And what that does is that attracts those the spawns basically that are looking for shells to develop into adult oysters. It attracts them over to the area. So we're, like I said, getting in front of the modules and working on attracting those spawns to the area. So as we install those modules, we'll have those oysters ready to attach and help to establish that oyster reef.
So that's how you kind of lure them with the modules and with these, the kind of initial creation of it. But from a stabilization standpoint, what are they doing to help the shoreline?
So, because you've got these concrete, it's concrete mixed with the oyster shell. So they work along with kind of helping you to establish that oyster reef. And so you've got this concrete structure that as those storms come and those waves are coming, it's protecting that coastline from, the erosion. So you've got that barrier that's in place that's going to hopefully hold that sand or whatever, or the natural grasses even, it's protecting those things. And those are all things that help the coastline, just help prevent erosion along the coastline of Trout River.
So this is a initiative, John, that is a kind of a new undertaking in terms of how it's being financed and how this grant process is being distributed. Can you talk about what it is, where the money's coming from, how it's being allocated in particular?
Absolutely. So this money is coming from the Northeast Florida Environmental Conservation Fund at the Community Foundation. And this is the only dedicated fund to benefit environmental projects at the Community Foundation currently. This fund source comes from when we bring Clean Water Act lawsuits to bring industrial facilities into compliance with their permits. So unfortunately, many facilities are sending pollutants into the water that can be carcinogenic, like heavy metals. And we go to these facilities and actually provide them the technical expertise to come into compliance, and at the same time come into a collaborative settlement process where a part of that process is paying into environmental benefit payment to the Community Foundation to fund these types of projects. And so Marcia Ray and the Riverview Collective Charitable Organization is our first major grant from this fund. And so the fund is available so other individuals in this city can make donations, but we've been able to raise over $100,000 so far, and we're likely on track to raise another $100,000 this year. And so it's fun to be usually as a water quality organization, advocacy organization, we're the ones asking for money, but to be able to be the grantors and working with scientists and engineers and philanthropists to create a dedicated source to help groups like the Riverview Collective Charitable Organization, it's an incredible step in the right direction for Jacksonville. We're very proud of.
And so that fund, as you say, is kind of financed by fines or payments that are made when somebody is, violating water quality standards. I would think of that money as typically going to like a regulatory agency. How does it end up in this fund?
Oh, that's such a great question. Typically, they would go to like the Department of Justice, and it would go off into some nebulous, place somewhere in D.C. or something. But instead, these entities get to know that instead of doing that, they get to pay into a local fund that's going to have a local impact. And so the Community Foundation is such a trusted organization to do the right thing with the funds. So we trust them to use these funds in the best way possible right here in this community. So for example, the industrial facility that we worked with for this settlement was located right there close to the Riverview community. So to be able to give back right back into that community and help that tributary was very meaningful. And so it's good that it's so hyper local. That's our intent.
And Marshall, you're wearing a Oyster Queen shirt, so obviously very invested in this process and this project. How was it that the community decided that this would be the kind of the choice, the project that was going to be the one that they wanted to take, use this money that was coming back to the fund, and select specifically this kind of restoration project?
What I tell many, the oyster shows me I didn't choose the oysters, right? And so that's what's just happened even with the organization and this work. We started with just wanting to do more work in the community, right? We knew we wanted to establish an organization. We had a community meeting, and at our meeting, Jimmy Orth with St. John Riverkeeper, he was there. And so he actually was able to share with the community the work that St. John Riverkeeper as well as Liz had already been doing in the park. They had started some cleanup some time back. They also just helped with establishing a new playground area. So, we decided at that point, there's already work that's happening in the community. So let's go ahead and instead of trying to do something totally different, let's just partner with those that are already invested in the neighborhood. And that then led to the work that we're doing now.
Yeah. And so is it a kind of a grant application process, or how does that happen? The money and how it's allocated?
So, all of this again, when I say we were chosen, it's almost like we were seriously chosen because, once they saw that the community was really looking to just work alongside with some of the things they were already working on, our name started to just come up, I think, in different conversations. And so I think they just saw, the passion and what we were really wanting to do, and they basically came to us and said, hey, guys, we'd like to help you all get established as an organization and also help you with the work that, just learn about this work that's going to help in the work we're doing together, and that's just kind of how it happened.
Yeah.
And, we also, with the organization, we're not just wanting to, come in and put a lipstick on a pig, we're really wanting to educate the community so that the work that we do is something that's going to last a lifetime, hopefully.
And entities can put a letter of interest into the Community Foundation for the Northeast Florida Conservation Fund if they're interested in getting funding in the future. And the key that we're looking for are ways to amplify the impact of the funds that we give. So typically we would want to be closing a gap or trying to amplify funds that have already been secured by an organization to truly make a large impact in the city.
And just the fact that this is, as you said, returning funds to a community that was impacted by water quality violations, that's just sort of a happy accident. I mean, that's sort of nice that it worked out that way, but not necessarily how they'll be targeted in the future.
The Public Trust and the St. John's Riverkeeper specifically dedicate our water quality watchdog monitoring efforts to areas that typically don't have a voice of their own, kind of environmental justice oriented. And so it's no mistake that these facilities that we're focusing on mostly are located in traditionally underserved communities. So to be able to give back right there in that community is very meaningful.
And so, Marshall, this Oysterfest that we're talking about is April 12th, and it's from, I think, 11 to 4-ish.
Correct.
What are people going to see? What can people expect if they go? Are they going to be participating in putting these modules out? Are they going to see it happen?
Okay, well, so April 12th is going to be a very busy day for the community. We're actually starting with yoga at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
We're going to do yoga in the park. Then we're going to have our community meeting at 10, and then we'll go into Oysterfest from 11 to 4.
Okay.
So when they come out, so we're going to have vendors that are going to be talking about the work that we're doing. You've got Jacksonville Zoo. They're going to come out, talk about their living shoreline that they've already started there, and just, again, educate the community around what that's about. And then we'll have St. John's Riverkeeper. We'll have the students that are part of the work that we're doing that's going to actually demonstrate and show, exactly what we're doing and how the community can be a part of the work that we're doing. We're also going to have great activities for the students for children in the community to really help them better understand, how the oysters are filtering the water, how that whole system works. And then we're also going to, of course, have information around just wealth building, other things, heirs property. We're going to do a lot of just information that's going to benefit the
and
community
fun.
overall.
Music,
and fun.
food,
Live music, oysters, raw, and Rockefeller.
Great. Well, John November, Marsh Ray, Washington, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
It's been our pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
FSCJ Artist Series presents Menopause the Musical 2, Cruising Through the Change, a comedy with parodied hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. April 12th at Jack's Center for the Performing Arts. Tickets available at fscjartistseries.org.
Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you.
On the next Fresh Air, how can one man disrupt the global economy? We talk about Trump's tariffs, why they've led stock markets to plummet, how they're changing our relationship with allies and adversaries, and what tariffs mean for our daily lives. We talk with Zanny Minton-Beddoes, editor-in-chief of The Economist. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
Many conservatives accuse the left of policing language. Now, President Trump is banning words related to gender and diversity.
What this administration is doing is making it illegal, and they're making enormous federal penalties. And not even in post-war Germany did they do that.
I'm Deborah Becker. The rise of the so-called woke right. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. It's been a period of disruption for a local theater company that has included 3 artistic directors in 6 months and multiple production delays. Here to catch us up on what is happening at All Beaches Experimental Theater is Rains Carr. He is ABET Interim Artistic Director. Good morning, Rains.
Good morning.
We're also joined by Bryce Cofield, who is director of the theater group's upcoming production of Stephen King's Misery. Bryce, good morning.
Good morning.
So ABET has been through a period of transition, as we've said. First of all, tell us what's been happening and kind of what are your next moves?
Well, we've been kind of nomadic. COVID, we had a space, lovely space down in the Atlantic Beach Luminary here in town, was starting something new, and so he was ready to move on. We had somebody else come in, and he had some incredible opportunities that popped up to take his personal shows overseas to the Edinburgh Theatre Festival, which is a huge deal in the world of theater. And so he had to move on very quickly from that. And then I came in to sort of clean up whatever was happening with that. And through that process, we had to lose. We were going to do Grease. We had to postpone that show forever. Indefinitely. We were going to do Misery in January. We had to postpone that show. We had lost all of our artistic personnel except for Bryce from January through August. Everyone left.
Wow.
And so cleaning up the pieces, luckily Bryce stuck with us to keep Misery afloat because that was a production we were really excited about. It's a First Coast premiere, and everyone loves Stephen King, and we thought it would be a really fun show, and Bryce is very passionate about it. And so we've been working on this show since January. Yes. With 2 different casts. He blocked the whole show with one cast. They left. Now we have a new cast that's only had it for 5 weeks.
Bryce, first of all, what is the reason for all the drama behind the drama?
Well, we started rehearsing in January with the original cast, the first cast, and we got about 2 weeks away from opening, and one of our cast members had a loss in the family, and so we postponed it. And moving forward, we weren't able to keep her on the production because she felt as if it was too much for her to handle.
Mhm.
And it is a very, very intense show. It's an hour and a half long. It's mostly 2 people.
Yeah.
So it was a big
And not a light
undertaking.
subject.
No. So understandably, we let her, bow out of the production. And we ended up bringing in 2 new actors, Sam Cobain and Claire Cimino, to fill those roles.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of this is just in the category of life happens, not so
Mhm.
much, there's not any
There wasn't
nefarious
yeah,
activities
There's
happening.
nothing nefarious. It's no bad blood. It was just like a series of events. Like people had opportunities, other things happened. Some things were too big for us, some things were too small. Life so it's just like, you roll with the punches and you come out on top and you try, and as we say in the business, the show must go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so despite all these challenges, Bryce has really taken the reins to make this production happen. It's very technically complicated. We have a revolving stage, which we think is the first time has been used in the area and
Oh, neat.
that we can remember. It's got a really neat revolved stage. It's got all kinds of technical aspects and gunfire and sledgehammers and all the scary stuff
Yeah.
that Misery is known for.
Right.
Special effects.
A lot of special effects.
And so are you going to stick around, Rains? I mean, you're interim.
Though I'm the interim at the moment. After Misery is over, the board of ABET is going to vote if they would like to keep me or not. I'm more than happy to stay around. I'm very passionate. I grew up here in Jacksonville doing theater at Theater Jacksonville and some of the old theaters that don't exist anymore. And so I'm very passionate about community theater. I left for 20 years to work professionally in the entertainment business, came back home. And so I'm very passionate about community theater and what it does and can transform and how it can transform people and the community. It changed my whole life. It set my life on a trajectory of doing entertainment for 35 years. So now that I'm older, I can give back is a really exciting opportunity for me.
And just briefly, if you can, Bryce, if people are interested in seeing the show, it opens Friday?
It opens this Friday.
All
Yes.
right. And runs through end of April, roughly?
Yeah, our closing performance is April 27th.
So yeah, it's for the next 3 weekends.
And this is now being staged at
Players by the Seas Studio Theater.
Okay,
Yeah.
terrific. If people are interested, you can get more information at abetjax.com. Rains Carr, Bryce Cofield, thank you so much for being here. Good luck with everything.
Thank you so much for having us.
And
Ann. I
break a leg
appreciate it.
Friday.
Thank you.
All right. That's our program. Thanks so much for listening. If you have questions or comments, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight or find our entire archive at WJCT or on your favorite podcast platform. Join us tomorrow when we explore what birds can teach us about life, social change, and the environment. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com.